When you get on an airplane, you see the guys, the pilot there, you want to see a little gray hair. You want to see that this pilot, if they have to land on the Hudson, you're going to live, right?
Welcome to Philly Tech Connect podcast, where Philly's tech minds meet. CEOs, developers, dreamers. This is your space. Each week, we explore the journeys of tech innovators. Join us and be inspired.
Hey everyone, Dave here with another episode of the Philly Tech Connect podcast. Every week we bring to you an episode with a Philadelphia entrepreneur to learn about their history, their journey, and today we're bringing you Brian Fitzpatrick. Brian's the CEO and chairman of Credible, a regulatory software for the CBD cannabis industry. He's led software and related platforms for over 25 years. The majority of his career has been spent building financial and regulatory tech companies and advancing them successful exits. He specializes in cloud-based software, machine learning, robotic process automation, blockchain, a lot of good stuff here. Brian, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you, Dave? Good to be on.
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for joining us to share some wisdom. I have, a lot of people that I've been talking to are a little newer in the journey. So this is giving me an opportunity to change up the questions a little bit. But firstly, as someone who's been kind of in the Philly tech scene for decades, honestly. Tell us about your impressions of it and how maybe you've seen it change or not change over time.
Well, I've seen a lot of changes in the Philly tech scene, and I've really seen it come from basically non-existent to really one that's evolving very well. I mean, I still think we have some more work to do in the Philly tech scene, but I think it's a very positive scene from what I can see. I mean, what I've seen it when there was really not a lot of funding, not a lot of venture firms out there to, these angel groups starting to grow up and more venture firms and private equity firms being based out of the area. But more important, what I'm seeing is a growing ecosystem. And I think the tech scene has been steadily growing with a pretty good diverse range of startups. And I've gotten the opportunity to meet a lot of the CEOs and founders of those companies and really talk about, how they're recruiting, how they feel about the talent pool, how they feel about just the Philly scene in general. And it's very positive, but like anything else, it's evolving and it's a lot stronger over the last 25 years from when I first, saw it start to grow in its nascent roots.
That's awesome. No, I love that optimism. I've been in Philly for only about 6 years or so, and only really recently started to connect in the tech scene here. And I'm feeling a lot of those tailwinds as well, and just a general kind of like motivation and ambition from the crowd. And I hope 25 years from now, I'll be able to kind of say similar things to what you said now. That there's just made a lot of progress over the years. With respect to, you're the CEO and chairman of Credible, but even just, going back before that, and as I kind of looked at your LinkedIn profile, there's a number of times where you were, CEO, president, etc. You're a leader. You've been in a number of leadership positions. Again, not a lot of people, really get to that level. Give us some advice, if you may, about being an effective leader.
Sure. Well, my leadership journey has been an amazing one. I was a CEO I think I became a CEO at 32 years old. So, and I've been a CEO ever since. So what I can tell you is when I first became a CEO, I didn't even know what I didn't know. There was a lot of, on the job learning. And from a leadership perspective, it was important for me to really surround myself with people who had been there and done that. And it's one thing that I always tell people: seek wisdom. When you get on an airplane, you see the guys, the pilot there, you want to see a little gray hair. You want to see that this pilot, if they have to land on the Hudson, you're going to live, right? So it's like anything else. If you really seek that wisdom from others who have been there. And I had that opportunity. I had the opportunity to be around a lot of really good leaders very early on. And the thing that I noticed, which I've emulated in my own leadership style, is a humility in leadership. I've never been that guy that's going to bang my fist on the desk and say, it's because I said so. That's why we're doing it. That authoritative method doesn't work real well, and it never has for me. I've never tried it before, but I've seen it used in various companies I was in. So, from a leadership perspective, I think it's really important to, you got to be out there in front as a good example, but you also have to lead from behind. And you need to really allow your people to feel like they're in an environment where they can speak up. And I encourage, my folks in my company to challenge me. Just because I'm the CEO doesn't mean I can't be challenged. If there's another way of doing things, if there's a different way that you want to voice your concern or your opinion, I want to hear it. Because what happens is, if you're this leader where it's your way or the highway or the only way, you don't foster good ideas. You don't foster innovation. And nobody really is able to take ownership as this being a team effort as part of their company. It's because it's all about you. And so never make a company about you. And I think that's the greatest thing in leadership that I have really found. And I have had the opportunity to work with great team members and really build great companies, which I don't do alone. It's been through a group of great people working together in a very good culture.
I love that. A lot of things that you mentioned about being an effective leader. You mentioned humility. You mentioned surrounding yourself with great people. You mentioned leading by example. They seem to me as things that are just timeless qualities that they would have benefited somebody 100 years ago. I would think. Do you feel that way, or are there ways in which the way you're leading a company now, the expectations of being the leader, feel different than 32-year-old Brian and what the approach was back then?
Yeah, I do feel a difference. I think the biggest thing that really I've learned as I've gotten older is, you sort of compartmentalize when you're younger. Like you're a 31, 32-year-old CEO, so you're supposed to be this way. You're supposed to act a certain way, when the reality of the situation is you just need to be who you are to all people. Like, your leadership style in business shouldn't be any different than my leadership style as a dad, or with my friends or the people I'm around. You have one self, and that one self needs to be unique and authentic. I've always believed that you should try to find a way to make things and people better than you found them. And if you really focus that, I think it's very helpful. So back when I was sort of emerging, I was growing up in this scene where it was, we were coming out of a different kind of era and age where, you had to be authoritative, and and I've had bosses that, really scared me. I mean, they were intimidating. And although I learned a lot from them and learned how to be prepared, because you never wanted to go in front of any of these folks unprepared, it really taught me that I needed a different style. And your style, the way you are in your business, should be the way you are all the time, because it's about authenticity, and it's about being real, and it's about being a good person, before anything else. Because if you're a good person, then you're going to be a good leader, and you're going to be a good manager, and you're going to be a good coworker and team member. So I think that's the important thing. There's no let's put my CEO pants on and then I'll take them off. So everybody's scared of me during the day, and I'm intimidating during the day, but then I'm nicer when I get home. No, it's nothing to do with it. It's really about being who you are, authentic, and leaving people better than you found them.
It's good. I mean, it's good to know that that you don't necessarily have to be someone you're not to be a role. To be an effective leader. It should be a lot easier to just be yourself. Let's shift gears a little bit and talking about some failures. I'd be surprised if in the just the decades of a body of work that you've produced, there weren't sometimes or some projects or whatever they may be that just didn't go the way you expected. Whether we want to call them a failure or not is debatable, because we can argue we learn from everything we do. Nevertheless, let's say something that didn't go as expected. Do you have anything in mind you can share with us?
Well, how much time do you have?
Yeah, that's the question, right?
Listen, failure is a big part of life, right? And the key thing about failure is you're not going to win everything, and you're going to make a series of mistakes, and it's really what you learn from those things that really help to make you a success over time. So yes, I have had several things that did not work the way that I thought it is. I have many examples of that in business. So I really view entrepreneurship and business as an evolution, right? Not a revolution. Like whenever you look at these people and you see these big, success stories, what you don't hear is everything that they've been through and falling along the way through that evolution. So what I would say is has made me successful in my career is not just about what I've done right, but it's everything I've done wrong. I started my first business when I was in second grade. So, I've been starting businesses and watching and learning, all along. Now, fortunately, I haven't had any business failures where the business just went under. I've led every one of these startups to the point where they've had a successful exit, but lots of little failures along the way to get there. And I can tell you, like, one of the companies I had was 3-4 days away from going out of business and getting a bank loan called and literally just shutting down the whole business. But it was what I was able to do to recover from that. And it's like I tell people all the time, it's not how big you mess up, it's really how you recover and what you learn from that. So I mean, I can spend all afternoon giving you examples of failures, but all of them, help to get me where I am today.
There's something that you said there. I have to also inquire a little bit more. It wasn't a planned question, but you mentioned that the first business you started was in second grade. I kind of want to know what it is.
Yeah. Well, I grew up, late 70s. So when I was a kid in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, the ice cream man used to come around, and it was the Jack and Jill ice cream man. And myself and another friend, another fellow second grader, we used to watch what kids would buy from the ice cream man. And much to our surprise, they didn't buy as much ice cream, they bought candy. And we used to write down what they would buy, what kind of candy. And we realized that we could actually sell the candy cheaper than the ice cream man. And we knew exactly what candy to buy because we sat for weeks writing down what kids would buy. So we got my friend's mom to take us. We went to this wholesale candy store with literally socks full of quarters that we would earn doing different things and our chores and just cleaning my sister's car, for example. So these were all things that were very we had that money and now we knew what people were buying, and we literally opened up a little candy store behind his house. We made a little like shelter. And so the lesson I learned there was learn what the market wants and needs and is willing to pay for. That was a very early lesson. In second grade, we learned that just by watching what people were buying. And then we had a price strategy, right? But that business quickly got shut down when the ice cream man, who used to wear an eye patch, had tattoos all over his arm and was missing 3 fingers on one hand, came around and literally pointed in our face. He actually sought us out in the backyard and told us he was going to call the police and shut us down. Well, that literally scared the bejeebies out of us. So that was the end of our business. But we learned, that young, I learned to watch what people wanted and needed and what they were willing to pay for.
So I guess that may be one exception to all businesses were led to successful exits. Then I guess, but it was led to an exit nevertheless.
Yeah, it was an exit on our terms.
Yeah,
We
it was an
ran.
exit
It
on
was
your choice. Yeah.
we just took off.
Very cool. Brian, it sounds like you've already shared a number of advice that you've kind of learned along the way. But if you could sit, 32-year-old, first time CEO Brian Fitzpatrick down and share some wisdom with him, what might you say?
It's always an interesting question because you learn along the way. But I think the one thing is take a pause. All right, that would be my greatest advice to my younger self, because I tended to be more reactive as a leader before, and I was not as introspective than I should have been. And I later on in life, I learned to hit the pause or the mute button, right, on myself, because a lot of times what happens is when you're in a situation in business, you see something going on, you think you know this, you think you've got this figured out, and you talk too soon, and you open your mouth. Instead, as I've gotten older, I've become much more introspective, and I've observed a lot more than I used to. So I listen more, I understand more about what's going on, and I'm less reactive to things. And that has reduced a lot of the stress in me. And it's also created a better working environment too with my people, because it has given me the opportunity to truly understand where they're coming from, even if I don't agree with them, right? But to understand really, as Steve Covey, once said, as one of the 7 lessons is to seek first to understand before being understood. And when we're young, I think part of what my struggle was at 32 years old is I was insecure. I mean, I was a CEO at 32. All my other counterparts were much older than me, and I felt like I needed to have the answers. And the fact of the matter is, I didn't need to have all the answers. I needed to really sit back and think more and take a pause. So that would be the way I think I would describe it as I look back at how I was at 32 versus how I am at 55.
Brian, for people that want to reach out, hear some more words of wisdom, get in touch, how should they do so?
Yeah, so I'm at Brian at Credible, Credible.com. So it's credible.com. I actually spend a lot of time lecturing in universities today because I'm a big believer in giving back. And the youth today, whether they're millennials or whether they're Gen Z, they are our future. They're our future leaders. So I'm a very big believer in mentoring future leaders, and always willing to give advice and help out if I can. So I'm at Brian at Credible.com.
Thanks so much. I'm sure there are a number of people in our community that would benefit greatly from taking you up on that. I appreciate your time today, Brian, and sharing everything you've learned over the last several decades of being a Philadelphia entrepreneur.
Thank you, Dave. It's great to be on the show and great to see what you're doing for Philly entrepreneurs.
That's all for today's episode of Philly Tech Connect. Join our community at phillytechentrepreneurs.com. Special thanks to our sponsor, Shortlist.io, a digital marketing agency specializing in top-notch link building, content strategy, and web design. Stay innovative, Philly, and see you next time on Philly Tech Connect.
A Lifetime Value Media production.